I'm Kelly Mitchell. I'm here today with Brahm Callahan of Himmel Hospitality. We're at the Pebble Beach Food and Wine event
Yeah.
2016 in this glorious place. And how are you liking California?
It's hard not to be relaxed and in a good mood when you have beautiful weather, the ocean behind you. It's a pretty awesome thing. So,
Excellent. And Brahm is actually a master sommelier. In fact, is it correct that you're the only master sommelier in Boston and probably one of the youngest?
I'm one of the younger guys. There are a couple younger than me for sure, but I am the only one in Boston. There's another one in Massachusetts, but
Okay.
I am the only guy in Boston. So.
Excellent, excellent. So revered, I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's been so I've been in Boston for 10 years now, and more than anything, it's been just wonderful to see the growth of our business and how much it's changed. Going from when I first started, there were only 4 or 5 restaurants with sommeliers on the floor,
wow,
and now there are dozens and dozens and dozens. Like I said, we've got 20 certified sommeliers in our company, so it's
excellent.
a pretty awesome thing. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
So, one question in particular, becoming a master sommelier is one of the most intense processes in education, I think, that exists for the absorption of information and the
Mhm.
retention. Do you have a photographic memory?
Sometimes for
Sometimes.
certain things, yeah. I think there's certainly parts of the process where having a very strong memory. So more than anything, I have a kind of a photographic taste memory.
Ah,
So
excellent.
that for me is very obviously useful in what we do.
Absolutely.
The actual brain part, I'm very good at memorizing stuff, but more than anything else, when you go through the process and become a master, it's not really about memorization. You have to process the information. So
Ah,
it's not about like where you can cram and then regurgitate. It's about retention. So when you really want to retain something and be truly masterful in a subject, you have to put it into context. And that was the thing for me in my studies, was trying to put everything into context. So learning the history of a region as far back as I can go, what the people eat, what they drink,
mm-hmm.
how they live, how far it is to drive to the nearest city, whatever it might be, so that you have context within a region that you can then put that information that you need to remember into that context.
Excellent. That's very good information. I think a lot of us on the outside don't really, understand the intricacies of the hows and whys and what you actually need to do to execute. So,
Yeah, and the idea is that you will be able to essentially access this large vault of information randomly, and so to do that, you have to have really created a structure to it. So it can't
okay.
necessarily be where you just memorize stuff and then have a trick to get into it and then you forget it, because then it's not. The whole idea is we're a service-based organization, and we want certify people through restaurants, and you never know what a guest or a table is going to ask you, so you need to be able to pull that information out readily, and the best way to do that is to process it. So,
Absolutely. Okay, so the next question I have, I want to get personal for just a moment.
sure.
I'd love to hear, after a hard day's work, what you imbibe when you go home
It depends on how bad it's been.
and how much you drink, right?
Yeah. So, well, the worse the day, the longer the consumption, or the larger the consumption, anyways. But either an ice cold beer. I will certainly have a glass of wine. Sometimes champagne is kind of my end
Go
of
to.
day wind down.
Excellent.
And then if it's been a
French, obviously.
yeah,
Yes.
but really enjoy all spectrums of producers. I have a number of favorites, but just whatever's in the fridge, and at that point, not trying to really think about it as much, more just trying to enjoy the beverage.
Enjoy, yes.
And if it's been a really particularly hard day, either bourbon or scotch.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Excellent. What is one of the most surprising things you've been asked by a guest or somebody who needs information about wine?
Sure. So, I mean, I've had guests ask me to essentially blind taste a wine using the grid tableside, which is kind of weird,
That's kind of weird.
but it was a fun exercise, and to do it that way. And then I've had a guest like ask I'm feeling red today. I'd like to drink something that would make me feel red, and you kind of have to translate that information into, okay, I think I know what you want to drink, and
That's
hopefully you get it
incredible.
right. So it's about we get a lot of different interactions with guests, and they all have different terminology, different experiences, and so you kind of have to be able to speak multiple languages, if you will, and translate that into something that is going to relate to a flavor profile or a wine that they're going to enjoy.
Understood. Excellent. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on rosé and this magnificent resurgence
Yeah.
that it's experienced.
Yeah, it's a really nice thing to see, and certainly just there's now we're starting to see kind of the growth of the premium rosé category, which you can make serious rosé, but in especially in a climate like California where you have sunshine and beautiful weather most of the time, rosé is really just it's refreshing. It's bright. It has kind of lives in both worlds where it has a lot of white wine and red wine characteristics at the same time.
Excellent.
And it's just it's a wonderful, it's actually super food friendly as well. So it's a great arsenal, a tool in a sommelier's arsenal.
Wonderful.
So
I'm curious as to, are there any new grapes or blends that you've come across that you didn't anticipate tasting wonderful and they do?
well, so certainly some things that I've had where I've been surprised, where I've had previous experiences with them. So like Vinho Verde from Portugal, generally not of the highest quality, but now you're starting to see some artisanal producers making some really actually great wines, and it makes sense when you look across the river. You have Reyes Baixas, and it's just some great Albariños from Spain coming already. So, that was a nice thing to see. But then, just the other day, actually yesterday, I had a beautiful bottle of Ferment, which had the bottle before, but it was just it reinforced the idea that this grape from Hungary that nobody really is familiar with, and generally was used for sweet wines, can actually make wonderful dry table wine.
Interesting, very interesting.
And unique too, very interesting and different from anything else that I've had. So
Excellent, thank you.
yeah,
And last and in closing, we're looking at this incredible growth of wine growers and winemakers in the US, which is, I mean, it's beyond anything it's ever been. What are some of the, kind of trends that you see coming out of these regions? I mean, we've got Colorado on the map now and producing some decent reds
Yep.
and things that, I mean, Colorado, like really?
yeah. I
I had
mean,
no idea.
they grow wine and they actually make wine in all 50 states. So they grow grapes and make wine in all 50 states, which is some places shouldn't and some places should. But I think what's interesting is you're starting to see people understand a little bit more about viticulture and site selection, and then really willing to try different grapes, because you look at the United States as a big area and there's a full range of climates, and you look at grapes that are planted in other parts of the world that are in those full range of climates, so you just kind of need to experiment a little bit. You look at places like the Finger Lakes, they're doing a lot of wonderful stuff with grapes that you don't see outside really in New York,
Absolutely.
unless you're in Europe.
Yep.
So
Great Albarino coming out of Finger Lakes.
yeah, I mean, and Riesling and some beautiful
yeah.
like Loire Valley Cab Franc in that style. So unoaked and really bright and more floral. So really interesting stuff.
And that is a huge trend. I mean, even in California, we're seeing more winemakers lean towards the bright, more European type of
Yeah,
styles
I
of
think
wine.
as certainly the wine gets more associated with food domestically, it's an important thing because acid is going to help when you're pairing wine with food, and you kind of need that. So maybe a little more judicious use of oak, and trying to let the varietal of the site speak through. It's kind of being a little bit more of a focus for some people. So
Excellent. This has been wonderful.
hey,
Thank you so
pleasure.
much,
Thank you
Brahm.
so much.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.